All right, so are you ready to dive into this one?
I am totally ready. Let's do it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Um, Today we're looking at the subtle art of not giving a F by Mark Manson.
Yeah.
And this should be an interesting one because it's kind of a self-help book,
Right.
but not really.
Yeah, it's kind of
It's like anti-self-help.
it is anti-self-help for
But
sure.
in a way, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got the book here. We're going to be pulling some quotes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, should we just jump in?
Let's jump in.
Okay, great. So Manson kind of kicks things off by talking about this guy, Charles Bukowski,
Yes.
who I've never actually heard of before.
I had not either.
So he was a writer,
He was.
and I guess pretty successful?
Yeah, he was a very successful writer and poet.
Okay, so successful writer and poet,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of a loser in a lot of ways.
Kind of a self-aware loser.
Okay.
Which I think was really important.
Interesting.
Like he knew.
Oh, so he was aware of his...
Yeah, he was totally aware that he was
Yep.
kind of a jerk and
Got it.
like not a great person, but he was okay with that.
Oh, that's so interesting.
He really embraced it.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
so his tombstone, it says, "Don't try."
Yes.
Like literally his tombstone,
Which is kind of amazing.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
And he was successful, and I guess he was kind of saying, like,
Yeah, don't try to be what you're not,
yeah, be yourself.
Yeah, just embrace who you are and run with that.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that kind of ties into
Totally.
one of his big points,
Right.
which is not giving a fick.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't care about anything,
Right.
but that you're very selective about what you care about.
You choose your battles wisely, I think.
Okay, choose your battles wisely. So we only have so much energy in a day. We can
You have a
always...
limited number of facts to give.
Right. And there's a funny anecdote in the book about this
Yes.
this lady at the grocery store.
Yes, this little lady.
And she's like flipping out about a coupon.
30 cents.
30 cents.
She's throwing a fit over 30 cents.
I mean, and he's kind of saying that, like, she clearly has nothing else,
Nothing else going on.
going on in her life.
That's her big thing for the day.
So it's like, are we going to be that lady, freaking out about the 30 cents?
Right.
Or are we going to choose our battles wisely? And like, what are we going to focus our energy on?
Yeah. What are the things that are really worth getting upset about?
Yeah, because there's going to be things that happen, like
Oh, for sure.
your car's going to break down. You're going to...
Yeah, you're going to have bad days at work.
Right. You're going to have an argument with your significant other.
Right.
So it's like, are we going to give all of our energy to all of that stuff?
And just be miserable all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So he kind of introduces this character called the Disappointment Panda.
The Disappointment Panda. I love him.
And what's the deal with the Disappointment Panda?
Well, the Disappointment Panda is all about, like, accepting the bad things. Like, life is full of disappointment. Life is full of...
So he's not sugarcoating it.
He's not sugarcoating it. He's like,
This is reality.
this is reality. This is gonna happen, and we need to be okay with that.
So we need to accept that there are going to be problems.
Yes.
There are going to be
disappointments.
disappointments. There are going to be things that happen that we don't like.
And we can't avoid them.
Right.
We can't just pretend they're not happening.
So it's not about, like, ignoring them.
No, it's about confronting them head on.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, I think that's what the rest of the book is about, is like figuring out how to deal with those things.
Okay. So we're accepting that they're going to happen,
Yes.
but then how do we actually, like, practically approach them in our lives
Right.
in a healthy way?
Exactly. And I
Yeah,
think he
yeah.
talks about how
Yeah.
a lot of people deal with problems in unhealthy ways,
Yeah.
like blaming other people
Yeah. Getting angry.
or just like completely denying
Yeah.
that they exist, pretending they're not happening.
Right. But those things don't actually help you.
Right. They just make it worse.
They just prolong the problem.
So we need to figure out healthy ways
Yes.
to approach those problems.
To actually solve them.
Okay, so then he goes on to talk about values.
Yes.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yes, this is one of my favorite parts of the book.
So we choose values
Yes.
in our lives.
Right.
But we don't always choose good values.
We don't always choose the right values.
Right. And he gives an example of this musician, Dave Mustaine,
Yes.
who was like super successful.
He was in Megadeth.
Yeah, he was in Megadeth.
And before that, he was in Metallica.
Okay.
And he got kicked out of Metallica right before they got really big.
Wow.
And he was always, like, super bitter about it.
Oh, so this guy's like objectively successful,
Oh, man.
but miserable.
But miserable.
Okay.
Because he was comparing himself to Metallica.
So he had bad values, I guess.
Yes, he was
Yeah.
valuing the wrong things.
Oh.
Okay, so how do we choose good values then?
That's a good question. I think it's about,
That's what we're going to figure out.
yeah, that's what we're going to figure out as we go through the rest of this book.
And then he contrasts that with Pete Best.
Yes.
who was the drummer for the Beatles.
The original drummer for the Beatles.
Yeah.
But he got fired
Before they made it big.
right before they made it big.
And you would think he would be like,
Devastated.
yeah.
But he actually said that he was happier
Really?
after being fired from the Beatles.
Why is that?
Because he had different values.
Okay.
You know, he valued family
Got it.
and spending time with his loved ones.
Okay.
And so even though he wasn't like a world-famous musician,
Yeah.
he was still happy.
So he had good values
He had better values.
and he was able to like live a fulfilling life.
Right.
Even though he wasn't like super famous.
Even though he wasn't a Beatle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's unstable.
not about what other people think it's about.
Right.
What you value.
What's important to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're all going to have different values.
Of course.
But the point is to choose values that are actually going to
Well,
lead to a fulfilling life.
that are going to make you happy.
Okay. So then he goes on to talk about taking responsibility
Yes.
and how it's not the same thing as fault.
Right.
And he uses an example of like getting cheated on,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, is not your fault,
All right.
but you're still responsible for your own
Yeah, you're responsible for how you react to it.
reactions, your own emotions.
Right.
So it's not about like blaming other people,
No.
but about taking ownership of your own,
Exactly.
in your
That's
own
it.
experience.
Of your own choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction
Yeah. It's a very important distinction.
because it's easy to get caught up in that
Victim mentality.
victim mentality. Yeah. And especially with social media now.
Oh, for sure.
It's so easy to just like
It's so easy to get outraged.
be outraged about everything.
Yeah. About everything.
And feel like everyone's out to get you.
Yeah. And that's not a healthy way to live.
Okay, so taking responsibility is about like focusing on what we can control
Yes.
and not worrying about the things that we can't.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can't control what other people do,
Right.
but we can control how we react to it.
Okay.
Okay. So we've talked about taking responsibility, choosing values, you know, not giving too many flarks.
Right.
Where to go from here?
Yeah, so then he goes on to talk about this idea of questioning our beliefs.
Yes.
And this is where it gets like really mind-bendy.
It does.
So he's basically saying that our brains are wired
Yeah.
to confirm our existing beliefs,
Right.
even if those beliefs are wrong.
Even if they're totally wrong.
So it's like we're constantly looking for evidence
Yes.
to support what we already think.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, confirmation bias.
It's a real thing.
And it can be really dangerous
It can be.
because it means that we can be like totally wrong about something
Right.
and not even realize it.
Yeah. And just keep going down that wrong path
Yeah.
and never even question it.
And he gives this example of, I think her name was Meredith.
Meredith, yeah.
And she like developed this false memory
Yes.
of abuse.
It's a really sad story.
Yeah, it's really sad.
But it's a really good example
Yeah.
of how our brains can trick us.
yeah, like how powerful
Yeah.
our beliefs can be.
And how easy it is
Yeah.
to create these false memories.
So what's the takeaway from that? Like how do we,
Well, I think the takeaway is that we need to be willing
Yeah.
to question our beliefs,
even the ones that we feel really strongly about?
especially the ones that we feel really strongly about.
Okay, so it's not about like just blindly accepting
Yeah.
everything that we think.
It's about being open
Yeah,
to the possibility
that we might be wrong,
that we might be wrong.
which is hard.
It is hard.
It's like really humbling.
Yeah. Nobody likes to be wrong,
Yeah.
but it's important
So how do we actually do that? Like how do we question our beliefs in
in a healthy way.
a healthy way? Yeah.
I think it's about seeking out different perspectives.
So like talking to people who disagree with us,
It's
reading books that challenge our worldview,
being willing to listen
Yeah.
to other people's opinions,
even if we don't agree with them.
even if we don't agree with them.
Okay, so it's about being open-minded
Yes.
and curious.
And I think it's also about
Wow.
being willing to change our minds.
Okay.
If we're presented with new evidence,
If we're proven wrong.
if we realize that we were wrong about something,
Okay. And that can be really hard,
it can be.
but it's also like really freeing
It is.
in a way
It is freeing.
because it means that we're not like stuck in our
Yeah.
own little echo chambers.
Yeah, we're not just surrounded by people who agree with us all the time.
And we're constantly learning and growing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about questioning our beliefs,
Yes.
taking responsibility,
Mhm.
choosing our values wisely.
Right. Yeah.
What else?
Well, I think now it's time to talk about the power of saying no.
Okay, this is a big one
This is a big one.
because I think a lot of us,
Especially women
yeah,
are socialized to be people pleasers.
right, to say yes to everything.
To put other people's needs before our own.
Okay, so how do we break out of that pattern?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that it's okay to say no.
It's okay to say no.
It's not selfish.
Okay.
It's actually a form of self-care.
So it's about protecting our time,
Yes.
our energy,
Our resources.
our mental health,
Okay.
our emotional well-being.
And it's about setting boundaries with other people.
Right.
So letting them know what we're willing to do.
And what we're not willing to do.
And what we're not willing to do.
Exactly.
And that can be really hard.
It can be.
Especially if we're used to always saying yes.
Especially if we're afraid of disappointing people.
Right.
Or making them angry.
But it's important.
Because if we don't set boundaries,
people will walk all over it.
Yeah, we'll end up feeling resentful.
Yes.
And burned out.
And we won't have any time or energy left.
Yeah.
For the things that actually matter to us.
Okay, so how do we actually say no?
Well, I think it's about being direct and assertive.
So not like wishy-washy.
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll try.
Yeah.
Just like a straight up no.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't do that.
And it's okay if people are disappointed.
It is.
We can't control how other people feel.
Right.
All we can control is our own actions.
Yeah.
Our own behavior.
Okay.
So if somebody gets mad at us for saying no, that's their problem.
That's their problem, not ours.
Not ours.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about saying no, setting boundaries. What else do we need to know about not giving a feck?
Well, I think another important aspect is the idea of commitment.
Okay. Now, this might seem counterintuitive.
Yeah, because we're talking about not giving a feck.
Right.
And commitment kind of seems like
you're giving a lot of facts.
Yeah, you're giving a lot of facts.
Right. But Manson argues that commitment can actually be really freeing.
Okay, how so?
Well, when we commit to something, whether it's a relationship, a job, a goal,
we're making a choice.
We're making a choice.
To focus our energy
on that one thing.
On that one thing and to let go of all the other possibilities.
So it's like we're eliminating distractions.
Exactly. We're saying no to all the other things.
So all the other shiny objects.
That might tempt us.
Okay.
And we're giving ourselves permission to really go all in.
On the thing that we've chosen.
On the thing that we've committed to.
And that can be really empowering.
It can be.
Because it means that we're not like spreading ourselves too thin.
Right.
We're not trying to do everything. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. We're just focusing on the things that really matter to us.
Okay, so commitment is about like...
It's about choosing what's important to us.
And then giving it our all.
Our all.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. You know, we've been talking so much about all these like individual ideas from the book.
Yeah.
But really, I think the power of this book comes from like the whole picture.
Okay, so how does it all fit together?
Well, it's not about just like not caring about anything, right?
Right. It's not about being apathetic.
Yeah. It's not about being like a nihilist. It's about like choosing what matters and then like...
And then really focusing on that.
Okay, so it's about being intentional.
Yes.
With our
energy, our time, our attention.
And our facts.
Exactly.
So we can't give a feck about everything.
Right, we only have so many to give.
So gotta be picky.
Gotta be picky, yeah.
Okay, so how do we put this into practice?
Well, I think it starts with like really understanding ourselves.
Okay, so self-awareness.
Yeah. Like what are our values?
What do we actually care about?
Yeah, what are the things that are important to us?
And not just like what we think we should care about.
Right, not what society tells us.
Or what our parents tell us.
Or what our friends are doing.
Yeah, it's about like really getting clear on our own.
Our own internal compass.
Okay.
Like what's our guiding star?
And then once we know that.
Yeah, then we can start making choices.
That are aligned with those values.
Exactly.
So it's about like aligning our actions with our values.
And it's about being willing to say no.
To the things that don't align with our values.
Even if it's hard.
Even if it means disappointing people.
Yeah.
Even if it means like going against the grain.
Because ultimately we're the ones who have to live with our choices.
So we got to make sure that we're making choices.
That we're proud of.
That we're proud of.
That feel good.
That feel good.
That are in line with who we are.
Okay. And it's about accepting that we're not perfect.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to make mistakes.
We're going to mess up.
We're going to fail.
We're going to have bad days.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
It's all part of the process.
It's all part of being human.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can accept that,
the
happier we're going to be.
So it's about like giving ourselves grace
yes.
and compassion.
And remembering that everyone's struggling. Everyone's got their own stuff going on.
So we don't need to compare ourselves to other people.
We're all on our own journey. Okay. And our journey is just as valid.
As anyone else's.
As anyone else's.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yes.
What's the one thing that you want listeners to take away from this book?
I think the one thing I want listeners to take away is that it's okay
Yeah.
to not give a fact
To not give a fact.
about the things that don't matter.
And to really focus on the
yeah,
things
and
that...
do. And to choose those things.
Yeah.
Consciously and intentionally.
So to be mindful
Yes.
of where we're putting
Our energy, our attention,
Oh.
our fix, and to make sure that they're going to things that are actually going to
make us happy,
make us happy, make us feel fulfilled.
help us live a good life.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck by Mark Manson.
A deep dive.
A deep dive. Thanks for listening.